In this video, we're going to be talking about a more complex type of equation, and that's an equation that has variables on both sides. So we're going to have x's or y's on both sides of our equation, and we're going to need to know how to solve that type of equation. To do that, really the one thing we want to do here in step one is to eliminate the term that contains the variable from either side using addition or subtraction. So we're going to add or subtract enough to get rid of that term from one side of the equation, and then we'll have an equation that only has a variable on one side. So then we'll turn it into an equation that we know how to solve, and that leads us to step two, just solve the equation, because after we eliminate the variable from one side, we're going to be left with either a one-step or a two-step equation. Now, I do have a tip here for step one, and that is pick on the little guy. Now, what that means is we're going to try to eliminate the term with the variable that has the smaller coefficient. Now, it doesn't matter which one you eliminate, you'll still be able to solve the equation, but you'll typically end up with an easier equation to solve if you eliminate the term that has the smaller coefficient. So let's take a look at an example of a couple equations here where we're going to solve this two different ways. In one, I'm going to eliminate the term that has the larger coefficient, and then in the other one, I'm going to pick on the little guy, and we'll see what difference that makes. So the one on the left, I have an x term on both sides of the equation here. Here I have 1x on the right-hand side, and I have 3x on the other side. So I'm going to eliminate the larger one. I'm going to eliminate 3x from the left-hand side by subtracting 3x, and then I'm going to have to do that over here on the right-hand side of the equation as well. I'm taking 3x's away from both sides of this equation. So on the left-hand side, I'm left with 0, and 1x minus 3x is negative 2x, and then I have the plus 8 constant. So now I only have a variable on one side. I have eliminated it from one side, so now I have a two-step equation to solve. So I'm going to go ahead and solve that by getting rid of this constant. I'm going to subtract 8. And that gives me negative 8 equals negative 2x. And then I need to eliminate the coefficient by dividing. I'm going to divide by negative 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is positive 4. And that gives me 4 equals x. So I've solved the equation, x equals 4, and I eliminated the larger coefficient term. Now on the right-hand side, I'm going to follow my tip, and I'm going to eliminate the little guy, and you're going to see the difference here in what this gives us. So I'm going to eliminate this x by subtracting x from both sides. And 3x minus x is 2x, and x minus x is 0, and 0 plus 8 is just 8. So now I just have 2x equals 8. And then I just divide by 2, and I'm done. So you can see I get x equals 4 in a much easier way. So I get the same solution both ways, but picking on the little guy will most of the time give you a much easier equation to solve and leave you in a much better position. So that's the strategy I'm going to use for these examples here now. So I'm going to solve these and show you how this works. So I have 7x equals 5x plus 4, and I'm going to pick on the little guy. So I want to eliminate one of these terms with the x's in it, and I've got 7x's on the left and 5x's on the right. Well, the 5x is the little guy, so I'm going to eliminate the 5x by taking 5x away. So I have to take 5x away from the left-hand side of my equation as well. 7x minus 5x is 2x. 5x minus 5x is 0, and 0 plus 4 is 4. So I have 2x equals 4. Dividing by 2 will then solve this equation. X equals 2. Solved. And then on the right-hand side, I've got 3x minus 2 on the left, and I've got x on the right. And x is going to be the little guy, so I'm going to eliminate that by subtracting x from both sides of this equation. 3x minus x is 2x. 2x minus 2 equals 0. I have a two-step equation to solve. I'm going to get rid of that constant by adding 2 to both sides. 2x equals 2, and then divide by 2. Doing a lot of dividing by 2 in these problems, equals 1. X equals 1, and I am solved. So picking on the little guy pretty much makes our life a lot easier, so I would highly recommend using that strategy. Here we have some rational coefficients. We got some decimal values. 2.1x plus 3 equals 3.1x minus 2. The little guy here is the 2.1x, so that's what I'm going to eliminate. Hello, my marker decided to just do something random. Minus 2.1x from both sides. And that's 0 plus 3 on the left-hand side, which is just 3. And 3.1x minus 2.1x is just 1x, or x. 3 equals x minus 2. Add 2 to get rid of that constant. And I get 5 equals x, and we are solved. Okay, so picking on the little guy really does make these equations a lot easier to solve. Here we've got some fractions in the mix. 1/2 p minus 15 equals 3/4 p minus 3. The little guy here is 1/2 p, so that's what I'm going to take away from both sides. I'm going to eliminate that term on the left-hand side, so 1/2 p minus 1/2 p is 0. 0 minus 15 is negative 15. And that just disappeared randomly, equals 3/4 minus 1/2 is 1/4, p minus 3, and then I have a two-step equation to solve. Add 3 to get rid of the constant. Negative 12 equals 1/4 p, and then I can divide by 1/4, or multiply by 4, however you want to think about that. And that's going to give me negative 48 equals p. And we are solved again. And then lastly, looking at this one here, we have to be careful with this one. We have 3x minus 8 equals 14 minus 7x. Now, which one here is the little guy? You might be tempted to say that 3x is the little guy because 3 is smaller than 7. But again, as I've been saying this whole chapter, is always pay attention to that sign in front. That's a negative 7x and a positive 3x. So the negative 7 is actually the small guy. It's the little guy. So I'm going to actually eliminate the negative 7x by adding 7x. I want to make that 0. So that's how I'm going to eliminate the little guy. On the left-hand side, I get 10x minus 8 equals 14 plus 0, which is just 14. Now I have a two-step equation to solve. Add 8 to eliminate the constant. 10x equals 22. Divide both sides by 10, and I get x equals 2.2. Solved. So be careful when you are choosing which term is the little guy. Always pay attention to the sign in front. That's what we've been saying all chapter. So eliminate the little guy, pick on the little guy, and then solve the equation that results, whether a one-step or a two-step.